Despite what the mainstream media are attempting to convince us, the World Economic Forum are not trying to fix anything. They're trying to break everything and leave it broken. They are trying to break you. You might want to start paying closer attention. WEF lead advisor Yuval Noah Harari, who has a history of saying the quiet part out loud, has been promoting his new book, and during an interview this week he admitted what many people have long suspected. According to Harari, who is Klaus Schwab's right-hand man, the big political question of the 21st century is, what do we need so many humans for? When asked if he has any answers to that question, Harari appears amused. Watch this.
The big political and economic question of the 21st century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Do you have an answer in the book?
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
The Roman Empire had bread and circuses. Klaus Schwab's hero, Karl Marx, said religion was the opium of the people. But today's elites have hit upon a deadly formula to keep the permanent underclass happy: video games and drugs. Make no mistake, the global elite wants you drugged and in a stupor. The makers of Idiocracy had it right way back in 2006.
As the 21st century began, human evolution was at a turning point. Natural selection, the process by which the strongest, the smartest, the fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man, now began to favor different traits. Most science fiction of the day predicted a future that was more civilized and more intelligent. But as time went on, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction, a dumbing down. How did this happen? Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
A comedy movie, sure, but as Shakespeare's King Lear said, in jest there is truth. The global elite have been dumbing down the masses for decades. The Common Core curriculum, the brainchild of Bill Gates and Barack Obama, is the perfect example. 13 years after the Obama administration began forcing schools around the country to adopt Common Core, students are now recording results lower than previously thought possible, with staggering declines in average math and reading scores. Teachers have been coming forwards with results for years to prove the controversial teaching method is a failure and significantly less effective than traditional teaching methods. Now, a new international study by the Pioneer Institute backs them up. Released in late April, the study reveals huge drops in math and reading scores since Common Core was fully enacted in 2013. This was after decades of consistent growth in both categories. Meanwhile, the Western world is awash with drugs, both pharmaceutical and illicit. The COVID pandemic response proves that government has been captured by Big Pharma, and it's an open secret that the mainstream media is controlled by Big Pharma advertisement spending.
One of the facts of American life these days is that many prescription drugs are now household names.
Both doctors and the public want to reach for the newest prescription drug.
You can't sit down to TV at night and not see a half a dozen drug company commercials.
Millions of Americans watch the ads and then ask their doctors for prescriptions.
The reason we're seeing so much consumer advertising is because it works.
They do it by telling people, ask your doctor.
They can sell us almost anything.
That's just the legal stuff. Our streets are awash with illicit substances, and rather than cracking down on the poison, our own three-letter agencies are at least partially responsible.
A ton of cocaine, pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions, is smuggled into the United States. Sound familiar? Not the way this ton of cocaine got here. According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard.
The CIA and the Guardia Nacional wanted to let cocaine go on into the traffic.
without doing anything. They wanted to let it come up to the United States, no surveillance, no nothing.
Well, here you got Jim Campbell, chief of station, who knows about this. Mark McFarlane, CIA officer, knows about this, and are stimulating this business of sending what are uncontrolled deliveries of drugs, smuggling drugs into the United States, right?
Right.
Now we have methamphetamine, fentanyl, and other opioids running rampant in our society, destroying human beings, keeping us on our knees. Drugs, education standards, a compliant citizenry cowed by lockdowns. It's a perfect storm and happens to fit like a glove with the globalist elite's plans. And it's not even the first time Yuval Noah Harari has let slip regarding their plans for humanity. He recently declared that the WEF considers the vast majority of the human population to be obsolete, useless, and redundant. According to Harari, so-called common people are right to be fearful of a future in which they will be made redundant. The WEF henchmen assess the widespread anxiety among common people as being rooted in a fear of being left behind in a future run by smart people. Such fears are justified, according to Harari, who spoke on behalf of the elites and confirmed, "We just don't need the vast majority of you." Harari's deeply disturbing remarks serve as the strongest warning yet that Klaus Schwab's WEF is intent on depopulating the world.
If you go back to the middle of the 20th century, and it doesn't matter if you're in the United States with Roosevelt, or if you're in Germany with Hitler, or if you're in the USSR with Stalin, and you think about building the future, then your building materials are those millions of people who are working hard in the factories, in the farms, the soldiers you need them. You don't have any kind of future without them. And now fast forward to the early 21st century, when we just don't need the vast majority of the population.
Because
the future is about developing more and more sophisticated technology, like, again, artificial intelligence, bioengineering. Most people don't contribute anything to that, except perhaps for their data. And whatever people are still doing, which is useful, these technologies increasingly will make redundant and will make it possible to replace the people.
Harari's comments are deeply disturbing because when they are placed in context with comments by other WEF advisors and affiliates like Bill Gates, it becomes clear that they have disablement and depopulation on their mind.
We cannot hide away from human population growth because, it underlies so many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
The scariest part of all of this is they're not even trying to hide their plans anymore.